Hey everybody, welcome back to the knot tying class here. Today we're going to do trucker's hitches, the trucker's hitch, and along with that you get the bonus of learning how to tie a slip knot consistently, because that's sort of the foundation for this trucker's hitch. Trucker's hitch is an awesome knot for keeping the line tight while you tie the knot, so you can get a nice taut line um, while you're while you're trying to make your knot. It's a way to keep it tight. And it's great for securing loads, for putting up tarps, for things like that, where you have to keep a nice tight line. Because it's sort of built all around slip knots, it's not something that we use in climbing, but you probably figured that out. So let me switch cameras again, like I always do, so that I have a little bit higher quality, and we get to see the things you actually want to see. Hey, John. John Eliason joined us. That's awesome. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get out a piece of rope, and we're going to learn how to tie a slip knot. Now, a lot of times I know as a kid, right, a slip knot is something you tie by accident, and then you're mad because it's not a real knot. But we're actually going to use those intentionally for this. So to tie a slip knot, we're going to start with a bite, right, like we talked about last week. And then with that bite, we're going to go around the knot, but instead of going around the whole bite, instead of going around both ends, like this, like we've been doing, we're just going to go around one end. So this bit of rope is going to kind of just hang out free, right? So once you tie this, you get what looks like a nice overhand. I had to move my camera this week for a little bit further view, so I wanted to pick up my knots more. But you'll notice that this part of the loop isn't really part of the knot. It just goes through the middle of this. And what happens is if I pull hard enough on the sharp end of this rope, this bite will come out of the knot and the whole knot falls apart. Right? So that's kind of what a slip knot is. Ta-da! It's like a bad magic show. So if y'all want to practice this now, if you have your rope, we're going to make a bite and then tie it around, one end, not the sharp end, let's say that, of our knot. So you can, if you get to this point, just let that flop out. You'll end up with a little slip knot. David is so amused by me teaching this. It's hysterical. He's got this big grin on his face the whole time. It's great. Okay, so that's a slip knot. Great for lassoing siblings and things like that too. Any questions on that? Are people having success tying a slip knot? I'm seeing a shaking head, but the audio's off. So, John, if you need help, let me know.
I need help.
Okay, so let's go back to this. Right, we've got this bite of rope, and maybe the easiest thing is actually to make a loop, right, in the whole bite. Whoops, this got ugly. So that it's crossed over. And then what you can actually do is take the end of the rope just out of there, so that you're really only tying this knot around half of the rope. Oops. Another way to tie a slip knot is to just make an overhand and then poke the end of the rope back through it. That's kind of another way to do it. So you should have one end through the knot. Just like this, so it can move and come out. Just keep working on that, because we're going to be practicing it a whole bunch. And I'm going to switch to kind of how we build the actual trucker's hitch. So what I've done here is I've got this other piece of rope. It's a little bit thinner, so it'll be a little bit easier to work with for what we're trying to do. This is a piece of P cord, so it's like what you'd use in an actual, if you're tying up a tarp or something. And I've got one end of it over here. This is already tied off to something. So if you're going to do this, right, you're pulling on a tarp or whatever. And I've got this slip knot in here. So if I pull this, right, this just comes out. I'm going to put it back in so we can continue. The basic structure of a trucker's hitch is I put a slip knot in here. And ultimately, I'm going to pull on this real tight. And I can run a line around this thing I'm tying to, which for me is this little step ladder, and then back to this loop. So I've got a slip knot here. I'm going to run my rope around the thing I'm tying to. I'm going to refocus on the knot. And we can take the end of the rope and put it back through this loop and then pull it tight. So you kind of end up using this loop of rope almost like a pulley, right? So that I can pull real tight on this, and it gives me a lot of force and it keeps it really nice and snug. So for you two, John, you can maybe hold one end or the other. It's kind of handy. Once this is snug, we're going to tie basically another slip knot in it. So we can take this rope once it's through this loop and pinch it. And then we just take a loop of this rope and we can snug it back up against itself here. So you end up with a slip knot right here that you can just pull the end back out and it'll release the whole knot. So it's 2 slip knots. So I'm going to take this out again. All right. So one end is secured to the, say, one side of my truck. And if you hold this, John, this might be another way to tie a good slip knot, is if you make a Z in the rope and then cross this end over and put it through, well, that's hard to see. If you cross the Z over and then take this bite and put it through that loop, you'll get a slip knot that way too.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah. So once you have that, you go right through your loop and pull it tight. So this is, right, this end is going around the other side of my truck. You pull it tight. And then there's actually a million ways you can tie this off, whatever knot you want to use, but a trucker stitch would be another slip knot. So you take it, let me fold this a way that makes sense. So it's crossed over, there's a loop here, and then you tuck a bite of rope through there and pull it. Cool. People got it? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? Nice. That's it. That's the trucker hitch. Super, super handy. We use it all the time setting up camp. That's the main place that we use it. And it's a really, really great knot to know. And anytime you want to have a nice tight line. So that's it. I'm going to turn the recording off now. Thanks for coming, but I will stay in we can hang out in the meeting.